All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We have one of the authors for the Game Changer book. We have Kat Haluska. I hope I said that right, Kat. More about
Absolutely.
yourself and then what you do.
No, absolutely. So for me, I'm born and raised in Russia, and I actually came to Canada when I was 19 years old. And it was very, very traumatizing experience for me. I never expected it to be such a culture shock, just because you would think Russia, Canada,
Yeah.
it's not such a big difference, but in reality, it was a whole lot of mindset involved. And so for me to give up everything that I've built and everything that I was in Russia and step into the new shoes was very, very hard. So I had to go through a lot of mindset work. I had to go through a lot of personal growth and just understanding that when my parents decided for our family to move, it wasn't because they wanted it. Because they didn't. They wanted it for myself and my brother because they knew that the life can be so much better than having to work all the time and having to look for a job all the time and only be able to get a job if you have the connections, right? And so they just knew that life in Canada would be so much better. I went through a whole long journey of trying to figure out who I am, what is it that I want, what is my purpose in this world, and that's probably something that I'll end up figuring out for the rest of my life. But I have marketing background, so that's I studied in it, I worked in it, I had a business in it, and now finally I'm applying it to something that I'm passionate about, and that's helping women grow their business so they can have the life that they want and the time that they want.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a really big life journey, and as such a young person to have those big changes.
Yeah,
So, well, we're glad that you came to Canada.
thank you. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
happy now. It wasn't like that from the get-go, but I'm
sure,
happy now.
absolutely. Yeah, getting to know a new culture and just
Mhm.
how people get along, and I'm sure there's so many changes we wouldn't even think about.
Well, I think the main thing was people in Canada are very friendly and external, and people in Russia, the way I saw it anyway, it might be different now, but the way I saw it were very internal and closed off, like very private, right?
Oh, really?
And so when you walk on the street, you don't really have strangers smile and say hi or come and talk to you or ask you questions. Often it's really uncomfortable to even just ask for directions, right? Because you are interfering with someone's personal space.
Oh,
Where in
wow.
Canada, it's and that's where it was a revelation to
Yeah,
me.
you may
In
get
Canada, people
invited for dinner.
yeah, exactly. Or you pass them in the store and you say sorry, excuse me, just for being in their bubble. But
Yeah,
then people have no problem coming up and saying, oh hey, how is your day going? Oh,
yeah.
cute puppy, and things like that. And to me it was just like I
Who are these people?
we didn't have a dog. We moved to Canada was a puppy.
Mhm.
She was a couple years old and we couldn't just leave her behind. She was a part of the
Yeah.
family, right? And I remember walking her on one of those dog trails, and people would always ask me about her and what breed she is and how old she is. And every time someone approached me, I was like, I'm not sure if they're friendly or are they going to rob me. So
Oh,
it could go either way because my mentality wasn't there yet. So it
right.
was like, it can go really well or really badly. And I wasn't sure what to expect. So I was always kind of like reserved and just waiting for things to happen and be like, smile or like, don't tell me what you're doing. I don't understand.
Oh, that's so funny. I grew up in Canada, so I understand, and then moved to the US. So we were here for quite a while and then moved back, and it's like, oh, I forgot how
Yeah,
friendly Canadians are.
yeah, yeah.
Not that Americans aren't. But okay, so what um share with us why you thought being in a chapter, writing a chapter and sharing your story in the Game Changer book was important to you.
Absolutely. So one of the things that came up for me, and by the way, writing a chapter in the book was very life-changing on its own.
Absolutely.
I had to really dive in deep and figure out how can I tell my story that, first of all, people can understand, because there's so many things happen in your life. And so it's not boring, because if I start just telling every single thing that happened throughout my
Right.
journey, that's kind of become really repetitive. Like it's not a personal journal, right? And so I just knew that chances are there's someone out there who is feeling what I felt when I moved to Canada, who's feeling what I felt when I started my first business, and who feels like there's just no way they can make it. Because I remember failing my first several businesses, and it was just awful. And I didn't know what to do. And I really felt, well, maybe I'm not cut out for it. But deep inside, just like I said in the chapter, I knew that there's a message dying to get out. I knew that I'm meant for so much more than just owning a business.
Right.
And so it just kept tagging at me, and it kept coming out where it's like, well, what are you doing hiding in the shadows? You've got to step into the spotlight and share the journey that you went through, and it's going to help people. And I knew that eventually it will fall into place how I'm going to do it. But it was the matter of getting out of my comfort zone and actually taking one step at a time to figure it out.
Absolutely. And sharing that vulnerability with people, especially with what you just shared with us with your background, had to be really hard for you.
Yes.
Yet that's when people connect and say, oh my gosh, you are a real person and I want to work with you. I want to get to know you more. So amazing. Yeah, no, I'm so excited for this book for you guys. And I really can't wait until we hear the after effects. We'll do some after videos, and it is a life journey, just writing, sharing, opening up, and then seeing how you've affected people's lives.
Yeah, and it's one of those things is I still remember that feeling where I wrote the chapter and I had an editor who looked over it and changed it to make it English. and just sitting there and hovering over the send button. And
Right.
there's such a conflict within me where one side of me is like, well,
Right
you
there.
gotta share. And then the other side is like, well, who are you to share? And then there's another, well, now everybody's gonna know.
Right.
And there's so many personalities and
Yeah.
and they're just all colliding together. And it was almost like, okay, I gotta click it quick. Oh, it's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Just shush, no more. Done. And I felt that only once in life before, and that was when I was quitting my job.
Oh,
When I
wow.
was handing in my resignation and driving away at the last day of job, that's exactly how I felt. That conflict rising within me.
Yeah.
Where is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it gonna work? Can I make it work? And there's just so many questions, right? But at the end, I do believe that it will make a difference. And if it makes a difference in one person's life, I'm happy.
It's all worth it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what we find with a lot of compilation books like this, once you get started and you kind of open up, then all of a sudden you realize, I need my own full book. I've got so much more to share with the world. So,
Absolutely.
so what would you say for people reading your chapter? What was your one or your main message of the chapter?
That you're not alone, and you don't have to do it alone, because everything that I've achieved so far in my life, everything, I give credit to the people who surround me. Maybe it was different people at different points in my life, but it's the support that I got that allowed for me to be able to do it, to trust in myself. Some people in my life still trust in me more than I trust in myself. And just knowing that I can rely on someone and I can even just go and cry on their shoulder. Writing the chapter was so hard for me, I actually had to give it up. One night I was sitting and I was typing it away and I got so emotional just remembering some pieces of my life and just trying to write it out that I just set it aside because I couldn't handle it. And just knowing that I can hold that one person and talk to them and say, you know what, this is really hard. This is much harder than I ever thought it would be. And just having a conversation or them just listening, it helps so much.
It's a very powerful experience. And often people will say, if they did go through some kind of a trauma, that it's very healing. It's kind of good for your soul to just get it out and open it up.
Yes, so, I agree.
Yeah. So for people, again, reading your story, and what would be the one thing that you would want them to take away and know?
I want you to know that wherever you are in your life, whatever you're experiencing, there are other people who experiences the same thing or experienced it at some point. Reach out, ask for help, find a community, find a person, find people that can support you through it. Don't give up. Never give up on your dreams.
Absolutely. So share with us something that either give us a little more detail of something that's in the chapter, or share with us something that's not in the chapter that we would like to know.
Ooh, here's something interesting. I didn't really share very much about the experience of starting the community that I run right now called $1 Million Sisterhood. There were just the really basics of that story, but here's what's interesting. It's 3 women come together. So myself, I'm one of them. There's Kimberly, and then there's Susan. So 3 of us came together to start a community for women entrepreneurs, of women entrepreneurs, just a support group, right? Yeah. And when it came to it, there's a couple of interesting things that we didn't know when we started that we discovered as we grew together. And that was, we're exactly 10 years apart, each one of us. So we cover 3 generations.
Oh, you're kidding.
And so every time we write copy or blog post or do a video, it's interesting because it's from 3 different perspectives of 3 different ages, right?
Yeah. Well, you're touching that many more.
Yeah. And it's pretty phenomenal to know that when we're talking business, I can ask Kim and say, hey, Kim, like, is that how it used to be when you were a kid? It's not that way. Or, hey, Susan, like, I'm just curious, what about when you were a kid? Like, was that any difference? Because sometimes here's what's interesting. Even though we're 10 years apart, each one of us, we all went through the same things.
Isn't that crazy?
There's so many similarities. Yeah. And so it was fascinating to also see the personality types. Me and Kim are similar personalities. We're very strategic, organized processes, systems, right? Susan is very heart. She's our heart. She's all about story, digging deep, discovering yourself, discovering your purpose. And so knowing that Kim is our action taker, I'm a procrastinator. Susan is a discoverer. She's going to go beyond, right? And so when it came to starting $1 Million Sisterhood as a business, we sat around that fire, and you read it in the chapter. We sat around that fire. We talked about it. The next day, Kim already started organizing documents to register corporation. Meanwhile, me and Susan, we're digging our heels, and we're like, well, maybe we should wait. There's a couple more things we need to figure out. No, it's already started, right?
Done deal.
Yeah. So it does require all kinds of personality to start and grow a business and have a successful business. But again, you don't have to do it alone. It's so much funner when you have more people to do it with, right?
Absolutely. And the support of women, like it's so powerful to see women, coming together, and whether it's a JV relationship or just support in love and friendship, and just giving you that, whether guidance or word that you need to hear, that's so powerful. And I think, not knocking men, but you don't always get that. I worked in corporate for many years. You're not going to get that,
There's something about the idea of that sisterhood, the idea of knowing what each is going through. And to me, that's what it is. It's not that men are worse or better or anything. There's nobody superior over anybody. But I can relate to certain things more when it comes to women than it does to men. Sure. There is that different perspective, right? And we already know women are multitaskers. They can do gazillion things at the same time. Men can do one thing at a time, right? So the mind works differently as is.
Yeah.
And so it creates a very different environment when it's all women versus when it's mixed, right?
Yeah. That's great. So if someone wants to know more about you, wants to follow you or be a part of this $1 Million Women's group, how can they get hold of you and how can they find out more?
So you can follow me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/KATHALUSHKA, Kat Haluska. You can just look me up just about anywhere. If you want to experience what being a part of the sisterhood is about and how it feels and what it does for you and your business, you can join our free group, and that's milliondollarsisterhood.com/free group.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking your time, and congratulations once again for being one of the authors of The Game Changer. It is a game changer. It's so amazing to hear all your stories, and I can't wait for you all to see it all put together, and it's very powerful and going to touch a lot of lives. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.